whether or not you use it, know someone who does, or choose to ignore it altogether. Everybody has heard the controversy over whether or not to legalize marijuana. For me personally, growing up in my hometown, marijuana had always been a topic of discussion. Growing up, I found that there are always pros and cons to everything. Pros and cons to legalizing marijuana. But I never really knew what they were, which pushed me to do more research on the legalization of marijuana. Should we legalize marijuana? That is the question. Today, I will be informing you on the pros and cons, or why not, to legalize marijuana, highlighting the medical and economic effects marijuana has so that you may create your own educated thoughts on the legalization of marijuana. Medically, there are many different aspects or effects marijuana has on a person's mental and physical health. The National Institute on Drug Abuse states that medically, marijuana has various pros such as reducing nausea, decreasing pain, relieving inflammation, improving muscle control problems, and controlling epileptic seizures. There are also researchers that are still looking into other beneficial uses, such as marijuana extracts that may help kill certain cancer cells, as stated by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. Scientists also want to see if they can treat symptoms of illnesses, and conditions like HIV, AIDS, MS, seizures, substance abuse disorders, and mental disorders. While we look at the positives, we also have to look at the negatives. Larry Malerba, practitioner, educator, and leader in the field of holistic medicine, believes that the consumption of marijuana is a slippery slope. Malerba states, used in excess, marijuana has a clear tendency to diminish motivation, blunt ambition, and generally stunt normal emotional growth. While it may not be the cause, Malerba says marijuana can be the straw that breaks the camel's back for individuals already predisposed to developing conditions. Conditions such as anxiety disorders like panic attack, or trigger psychotic states like schizophrenia, and trigger other types of psychosis. Now that we've seen the pros and cons on medical impacts of marijuana, let's look at the economical impacts of marijuana. The Journal of Global Drug Policy and Practices explains several key points on the impact that marijuana has economically. While it's hard to say right now due to a plethora of different factors, it is shown marijuana legalization has a very high potential to generate mass revenue via taxes. Tax expert and attorney Pat Oglesby ran different scenarios for different states and their marijuana tax proposals. While conducting his analysis, Oglesby found that states can bring in revenues of upwards near $500 million yearly, just off of taxing marijuana. However, legalizing marijuana also means we now have to pay for something else. While it's still hard to say how much, legalizing marijuana still comes with its costs. These costs include things like repealing current laws, implementing and enforcing proposed reforms, and educating the masses. To truly determine whether or not to legalize marijuana, we must look at all of these aspects and their impacts on legalizing marijuana would have on on the economy and the people's medical health. In conclusion, many pros and cons. In conclusion, legalization has many pros and cons. It can be used to treat the ill in certain conditions while generating mass revenue via taxes, but it could also be the catalyst to certain health and behavior issues while causing more cost to the government due to lack of revenue. I hope that today I have shown you why or why not to legalize marijuana, looking at the pros and cons of both the economical and medical impacts of marijuana, of legalizing marijuana. All information used today comes from reliable sources and studies. I hope that after today, you reflect on what you've heard, what you used to think, and make an educated decision when deciding on whether or not to legalize marijuana. While it's difficult to pick a side, depending on whether you do or don't use it, know someone who does, or choose to ignore it, the time for picking sides is coming sooner or later.